Hello everyone. Today we'll talk about evidences of organic evolution. So first the question arises, what is organic evolution? Organic evolution is, you can briefly express it as descent with modification. That means all the present animals and plants, all the complex organisms, they have been produced, evolved in the course of ages within a long time by a process of gradual change in earlier, simpler forms of life. That means simpler forms have given birth to complex forms, complex organisms. So that is organic evolution. So there are certain evidences for that. So we'll talk about evidences of organic evolution, evidences which will support that all the present life forms, complex organisms, they have evolved from organic evolution. That means descent with modification. That means simpler forms have given rise to complex forms. Okay, so there are certain evidences which are morphological and anatomical evidences, embryological evidences, paleontological or geological evidences, physiological, cytological, molecular evidences, and biogeographical evidences, taxonomic evidences, genetic evidences, and evidences from plant and animal breedings, and behavioral evidence, and evidence from host and parasite, and current evolution and experimental production of new species. So about all these evidences we will discuss in detail, all these evidences. So starting from the very first, that is anatomical evidences, morphological and anatomical evidences. So first point in morphology and anatomy is body organization. So body of all multicellular organism, that is formed of microscopic units which are termed as cell. Okay, so certain organism, they are at cellular level of their organization. That means their body comprises only of cells, independent cells, which will aggregate together to form a specific function to work as a whole unit or a body, like sponges, porifera, that is having cellular level of organization. The next level is tissue level, when different kind of cells, they will join together to form a tissue and will perform a function, a specific function, like that will be termed as tissue level of organization, and that is in phylum Coelenterata. Then is organ system level. Finally, all different kind of tissues, they will join together to form organ, to form an organ, and that organ, that will perform some specific function, and organs cooperate to form organ systems. Okay, so that is termed as organ system level of body organization. All the organism beyond platyhelminths, they have organ system level of organization including platyhelminths. So that is body organization. So you can see that from a simpler level, complexity have arisen, so from cellular level, then to tissue level, and then to organ system level. Then the next point in morphological and anatomical evidences, morphology, which is external structure, anatomy, which is internal structure. So we'll talk about both of these, external as well as internal structures of the organisms in this evidence. So then second point is vertebrate organ system. So all the vertebrate from fishes, that means simpler vertebrates, to mammals, which are the complex one or the most evolved one, which also include human being, they have organ system level for most of their activities, which can be nutrition, or which can be circulation, which can be transport, and which can be excretion and reproduction. So they have different organ system levels, organ systems for that. So gradual changes from two to four chambered heart is an example, that how these has evolved from a simpler structure to the complex. As the fishes, they have two chambers in the heart, but mammals have four chambers in their heart. So they have gradually evolved. They have gradually evolved with slight modification in every upper level, and enlargement of cerebrum and cerebellum, which are the portion of the brain, cerebrum in the forebrain and cerebellum in the hindbrain. So both of these portions, they have enlarged during the course of evolution, which proves that, and these are some of the anatomical structure of the brain, which proves that simpler organism has given rise to complex organisms. So you can study even a single, if you want to study any organ system, you can study that if in case of fishes or in amphibians. So that will give you a general idea of how the system works, a general body plan, and how this system works. It can be determined by studying any of the basic structures. So that is organ system level, and this proves that Yes, of course, there has been organic evolution from simpler organisms to complex organisms. So resemblance is so close that even a frog or lizard or mammal, they will serve equally well for acquiring the basic knowledge of any vertebrate anatomical structure. So similarity of this internal structure in animals, unlike appearance and mode of life, cannot be without significance, and this indicates that they have some common ancestor. That means they have evolved from a common source through descent with modification, which again proves that there has been organic evolution. Then the third point is homologous organ. Now what are homologous organ? Homo plus logos. Homo means similar, logos means origin. That means the organism, the organs which have same origin, that will be termed as homologous organs. So organs of different animals with same position, they will have similar position in the body, same basic structure and similar embryonic origin, that kind of organs will be termed as homologous organ. They may have a different form and play specific role in different organism. That means they look like these are not similar, and they can perform different kind of function, but still if they have similar basic plan, same basic structure, similar position and embryonic origin, these are homologous organs. So we'll discuss this with different examples. There are lots of examples of homologous organs. So first is vertebrate forelimbs. So here you can see these are four limbs of the vertebrate, starting from seal, then bird, then bat, and then horse, and then man. So here is a same basic general plan, starting with humerus, which is the upper arm bone, then radio and ulna, and then carpals, which are the wrist bones, and then metacarpals and phalanges. Metacarpals are the palm bone, which are present in your palm, and then phalanges, which are the finger bones. Okay, so that is the basic plan which every organism, every vertebrate follows, including seal, including bird, including bat and horse and man. But they perform different function with all these structures. Like seal use the forearm for swimming, and the bird use it for flying, the bat use its patagium for flying, the limb of horse, forelimb of horse is used for running, and the forelimb of man is used for grasping. So these perform different kind of functions, but they still have same basic plan. So that's why these are homologous organs, and they show that all of these structure, all of these organisms, they have evolved from a common ancestor, and which again proves theory of organic evolution. The next example is of, you can see here, that is from plant kingdom, tendril of passiflora and thorn of bougainvillea. Now the tendril of passiflora, that is again a supporting structure. Tendril of passiflora is a supporting structure, and these both help, tendril as well as thorn of bougainvillea, these both help the plant in climbing in different manner, and both arise in axillary position. Okay, as you can see, these both arise in axillary position, and they both help in climbing the plant in different manner. And these are basically the modified branches which have taken the form of tendril in case of passiflora and the form of thorn in case of bougainvillea. But both of these are homologous organs, and these suggest that they must have some common origin. So this was the example from plant kingdom. Next are again another example of thorn of bougainvillea and tendril of cucurbita. So these are again modified branches, and these arise in axillary position, and again they support the plant in climbing in different manners. So these are again homologous structures, which again proves that they must have some common origin. The next is insect mouth parts. Now, insect mouth part, any mouth part of insect that comprises of one single labrum, a pair of mandibles. Here you can see, okay, one single labrum, one pair of mandibles, and here these are mandibles. You can see, you must have studied that in your first year. You must have done the dissection as well, and then then okay, so labrum, one labrum, one pair of maxilla, one pair of mandibles. So these are the main mouth structures, and these help the insect in feeding. Now different insects, they have different kind of mouth parts. So this is the mouth part of a grasshopper, and here is the mouth part of butterfly, and here is the mosquito, and here is the fly house fly. So all of these mouth parts, they have similar kind of basic structure. That means these are homologous organs, but they perform the functions differently in different organisms. Like in grasshopper and in cockroach, the mouth parts are adapted for chewing. solid food. So these are chewing kind of mouth parts. And for in mosquito, these are sucking type of mouth parts. They are used for sucking liquid, piercing and sucking. That means first they will pierce through the skin and then will suck the blood of the organism. In butterflies, these are for siphoning nectar. So they will they will suck the nectar from the flowers. And in fly, these are of dissolving and sponging type. So they will sponge the fluid by dissolving the saliva into the solid food, and that will liquefy the material, and then it will sponge it. So the mouth parts of flies will be sponging type. So these are different kind of mouth parts which are homologous organs. Then another example is modification of insect's leg. That means insect legs are also example of homologous organ. They also have similar kind of basic plan, starting from coxa, then trochanter, then femur, and then tibia, and at last tarsus, and finally turn into claws. Okay, so these are some 5 to 6 portions of the insect leg: coxa, trochanter, femur, tibia, tarsus, which can be 1 to 5 jointed, and these are used for locomotion and also perform some accessory functions in the insect. So we'll talk about these. So this is a basic structure. So every green structure in every figure, whether that is A, B, C, D, E, that is coxa. That purplish bluish structure is trochanter, and then this blue is femur, and then this yellow structure is tibia, and the pink structure is tarsus. So you can correspond to the similar color in every picture. So the insect legs that modified, they have same basic plan, same basic structure, same origin, same position in the body, but they are modified to perform different functions in different insects. Like in this A portion, that is the digging leg of mole cricket. That is used for digging. That is the leg of mole cricket, and that is used for digging. Then this B figure, that is of grasshopper, and that is used for jumping. So that will be a jumping foreleg of grasshopper. Then this is a C, that is a leg of honey bee. You can see there is a pollen basket on tibia. This yellow structure is tibia, and that is having a pollen basket which is for the collection of pollen. So that is modified according to that, but still have the basic plan with coxa, trochanter, femur, tibia, and tarsus and claws finally. And this D figure, this figure is of louse, which is having clinging legs so that it can cling to the hair of the mammal. So that is clinging type, so that it can attach to the host hair. And then E, this is the leg of a water beetle, which is used for swimming. So here you can see these hair like processes which will assist in swimming. So that is that kind of leg. And finally this last picture is again this is a grasping leg of a praying mantis, this last picture. So that is leg of praying mantis, which can grasp the things just like human hand. So these are all homologous structures which have similar kind of arrangement but different adapted functions. So they again prove that these must have evolved through a common ancestor, and again proves that organic evolution has taken place. The next are here you can see vertebrate tail. So here is an example of vertebrate tail. And vertebrate tail, what is tail? Tail is the posterior most portion of the body which is behind the cloaca or anal aperture, and it has blood vessels and vertebral column and nerves and muscles and skin, but it doesn't have coelom and any visceral organ. So there is no viscera and there is no coelom in the tail. So the tail is basically the similar structure in all the vertebrates, but still it is adapted for different functions. Like in fish, it is used for swimming. In amphibians and some tailed amphibians, again it is used for swimming. In case of seahorse, which is a fish, in this it is used for clinging to a twig. Okay, so for attachment purposes. So and in reptiles it is used for swimming and movement on land. And in case of birds it is for braking and steering, and assisted device in bird flight. In case of mammals it can be a supporting structure, and it can again help for clinging to any tree branch. In case of monkeys, it is an additional support for case of kangaroo. And in various cattles it will keep off all the flies. and it is used for defense in certain lizards, in spiny tailed lizard, etc. So then next is vertebrate skeleton. The skeletons of vertebrate show homology, and they have the same component parts like skull and vertebral column and girdle. So the basic plan is same with ribs and sternum, and they also have same general function like support and protection. So it suggests that all the vertebrates, they must have evolved from a common ancestor via modifications in different body parts to perform different functions. And also this example is of this is of epidermal structures, which you can see these are derivatives of epidermis, vertebrate epidermal derivatives, which can be claws, which can be nails, which can be hoofs. Okay, basically, which can be scales and feathers and hairs as well. And these are all homologous structures. These are derived from epidermis, and these are keratinized forms of cells, and they perform different functions. As claws, they can be used for digging and for can used for digging and for tearing the meat pieces, and nails and hooves for running for additional support, hair for maintaining the body temperature. So this can be the so these vertebrate epidermal structure, they again prove that organic evolution is a true thing, that is a true theory that support the organic evolution, and that falls in the favor of that. So these are again an evidence for the organic evolution. Then next is phylloclade of Opuntia and cladole of Ruscus. Both of these are modified stem structures which has taken the form of a leaf-like structure and has started doing photosynthesis. So that is again an example of homologous organs, and which shows that they must have originated from a common ancestor. So different modification in a group have produced a variety of forms adapted to different modes of life, and such process is called adaptive modifications and or divergent evolution. So all the homologous organs, they are part and parcel of adaptive modification, or you can say divergent evolution. Okay, so moving further to the next evidence in the category of morphological and anatomical structures, then next category is analogous organs. Ana means different, logos means origin, which has different origin. So such organs are termed as analogous organs. These are the organs with same functions but are superficially alike and are different in fundamental structure and embryonic origin. That means they will look like these are exactly the similar structure, but these are not. Basically, with their internal body plan, these are different and they have different origins. So these are similar just by chance, and they perform similar function because of some adaptive modification according to the environment. So one example is of grasshopper and man, human hand, grasping mechanism of grasshopper, praying mantis, and human hand. So the grasping mechanism of both of these organisms is similar. Human has hand for that, and the four limbs of this praying mantis, it has been modified to hold on the things. So, but these are analogous organs and they show convergent evolution. So they again support the theory of organic evolution. And the next example is bird wings and insect wings. Both of these are used for flying. So they somebody can assume that these are homologous structure, but these are not because they have different origin. As the wings of insects are mere integumentary extension, these are extension of integument of the insect wings, and the wings of birds, these are the true forelimbs which are having which have um, limb bones which are covered with flesh and skins and feathers. So these are true forelimbs, whereas the wings of insects are just merely an extension of integument. So these are analogous structure. So similarity developed in distantly related groups as an adaptation to the same function is termed as analogy or convergent evolution. So that is termed as convergent evolution. That means evolution to a single point from different direction. That means the organs which have evolved, which has a different origin, but still they perform the similar kind of function. That means they are joining at one single point. Let me draw it for you. So suppose one, that is one evolutionary line from one direction, then that is another and different evolutionary line. These are joining at a single point, so this is single point. So this kind of evolution is termed as convergent. They have different origin of their organs or specific structures, but still they perform similar kind of function. That is merely by chance or maybe due to similar kind of adaptation in a similar kind of environment. That's why such modifications are there, and that are termed as analogy or convergent evolution. Okay, so moving forward, then these are again example of analogous organs: vertebrate eye and cephalopod eye. These both perform the same kind of function, that is for visual reception, and these are the sense organs. But eyes of cephalopod, which are an group in mollusca. Okay, so these are molluscan group cephalopod, and eye of cephalopod and vertebrate eye. These are they have many morphological features in common, just like eye. But the striking difference between the two is there that vertebrate eye that originate as an outgrowth of embryonic brain. That means the nervous coat of eye that has evolved by outgrowth of embryonic brain, that is derived from brain. But the eye of cephalopod is merely just an extension of skin, that is a modification of skin of cephalopod. So both of these are ectodermal structures, but still their origin is different. So these are analogous organs. Also, the fusiform body of aquatic organisms, that is merely by chance and because they inhabit the same habitat. And the fusiform body, it will give them protection from any kind of resistance, that will increase the speed in swimming. So that's why they have same kind of body shape, and that is because of similar kind of habitat. So like shark, okay, that is having fusiform body, and elasmosaurus, which is an extinct reptile, and a penguin and a whale, they all have similar kind of body shape, and that forms them to be analogous structure, that means body shape. Then is patagium of pterodactyl and bat. These are also analogous structures for flight, because being different structures with the same function. Pterodactyl is an extinct reptile, and a bat is a mammal. So the wings of a bird can be homologous with the forelimbs of the bat, but the patagium of pterodactyl is not. So these are analogous structure which have a different origin and different structures with a similar kind of function. So these are analogous structure which again prove that organic evolution has taken place. Then the next is leaves of a plant and cladole of ruscus. Now here is the true leaf of a plant, and here is the cladole of ruscus. Now cladole is a modified stem which has taken the function of photosynthesis, so it will appear like a leaf, but it is not leaf. That has a different origin, and that is a modified stem. So that are analogous structures. Also another structure is okay, so this was the last in the case of analogous organs. Next we'll discuss the connecting links. Now what are connecting links? As the name suggests, connecting, which will connect the two groups. That means the living organism which will possess the characters of two different groups of animals are known as connecting links. So such organism, they will connect two different phylums or two different classes, and they will form a bridge between these two groups, and they will prove theory of organic evolution to be true. That means all organisms, complex organisms, they have evolved from the previously existing simpler organism with a descent of modification, with slight modification, which is inheritable. So that is the main point of studying connecting links. So one of such connecting link is peripatus. So here you can see this organism. This is peripatus, which is a connecting link between annelids and arthropods. It has characters of annelids as well as arthropods, as it has claws and jaws and hemocoel and tracheae. These are some of the arthropodal characters. And annelid characters, like this organism has a continuous muscle layer in the body wall, and an unjointed legs and nephridia. It has nephridia and the legs are unjointed, which will make it to fall in Annelida category. So that is a connecting link between these two, and which again proves that arthropods must have evolved from annelids. So it proves that. The next is chimera. That fish is also termed as rabbit fish or rat fish, and that is a connecting link between cartilage and bony fishes. Okay, chondric thighs and osteoc So this fish is a connecting link between two. It possesses characters of both of these classes, as it has a skeleton system made up of cartilage, it has ventral mouth, it has two dorsal fins, and it has claspers. So all these characters that make it resemble to cartilage fish. Further, it also has placoid scales during its young ages, which is again a cartilage fish character. And just like bony fish, it has a small mouth with which is bounded by fleshy lips, and it has tooth plates which are joined to jaws, and it has four pairs of gills which are covered with operculum, and it lacks cloaca. It has separate apertures for anus and urinogenital apertures, and so two separate aperture instead of cloaca. So these all characters make it just like bony fish. Then next example is lungfish, Protopterus. So lungfish, it is a connecting link between fishes and amphibians, and it has characters of both of these group. And it has paired fins and dermal scales and gills and tail muscles and only internal ear. These are all characters of fishes. And it resembles amphibians as it has internal nares and it has one or two lungs for breathing. So this uh, connect this to the amphibians. So that is a connecting link between fishes and amphibians, which suggests that amphibians must have evolved from fishes with some descent with modification. So that again proves the theory of organic evolution. Also, there is another organism, Neopelina. This is the only segmented mollusk which is known till date. That is mollusk with segmentation. So it is a connecting link between Annelida and mollusca, which suggests that mollusk must have evolved from annelids. So it is the only segmented mollusk, and its visceral mass is divided into five segments, and with a pair of shell muscles and gills and auricles and nephridia and gonads. So this is again a connecting link between Annelida and mollusca. Further, there is another connecting link, which are egg-laying mammals. Egg-laying mammals, and these are namely spiny anteater, duck-billed platypus. This picture is of duck-billed platypus, and so the mammals, they have reptile characters as these are egg-laying. So this suggests that they must have evolved from reptiles through a separate lineage than that of the birds. So they are again forming a connecting link, and these are suggesting that mammals have evolved from reptiles. So these are tailed, and these have characters of reptiles as well as mammals. Like mammalian character include, like just like they have hair, they have mammary glands, they have diaphragms. So so that is mammalian character, and they also have a reptilian character, like there is a large coracoid in pectoral girdle. That is a specific bone which is present in the pectoral girdle of reptiles only, and they lay eggs with yolk and shell. So these are midway between reptiles and mammals, and which again suggest these connecting links. They establish a continuity in the series of animals by proving that one group has evolved from the another. The next are vestigial organs or rudimentary organs. What are these? As the name suggests, organs are useless for the possessor, but they correspond to fully developed functional organs in the related organism. That means the organism which possess them now, that doesn't have any function for that, and these are vestigial, but in their correlated groups or another related organism, they are fully functional. So there are approximately 90 vestigial organs in the human body. These are termed as rudimentary organs or vestigial organs. So in human body there are 90 vestigial organs, and some of these are like tailbone, which is termed as coccyx, that is an vestigial structure. So there is a small curved triangular bone at the posterior most region of the vertebral column, and this includes four and sometimes three or five. So there are basically three to five bones which are joined together, and these are a vestige of tail. And another structure is nictitating membrane, which is present in the corner of eye, with that is folded triangular fold of skin, pinkish skin. And nictitating membrane, so here you can see, so that is a vestigial structure which suggests that in some organism, like as we have evolved from reptiles, so that has been functional there for cleaning the cornea. But in case of human, that function has been retained by, that has been developed by the upper eyelid. So that's why this membrane, that nictitating membrane, it has taken the form of a vestigial organ. Also appendix and cecum and vermiform appendix, these are also the vestigial organ. Vermiform appendix is a blind tube at the end of the cecum, large intestine in case of mammals, including man. So certain herbivore forms like rabbit and horse, they have cecum and vermiform appendix as a large structures which serve for the digestion of cellulose by bacterial action. But man, as it has developed the habit of taking soft and cooked food, so it has reduced the need for bacterial digestion. So these structures, cecum and vermiform appendix, they have become very much reduced, and sometimes they also become infected with some unwanted bacteria, and that disease is termed as appendicitis, and it requires the surgical removal of the vermiform appendix. And so that will not affect the physiology, digestion physiology in any way. So, and this is one example. Another is a hair on the body of the of male person specifically, and mammae on the male. These are some of the vestigial structures. And third molar and pointed canine, these are again the vestigial structures, as these canines are used for tearing the pieces of flesh of the organism. But now the man is eating the soft and cooked food, so that is no there is no requirement for these sharp canines, but still they are present as a vestigial structure. Also the third molar, which sometimes it appear after age of 18 years, and sometimes not appear at all, and sometimes between 25 to 30 years of age, and it suggests that they are becoming useless and maybe eventually disappear on one day. Also there are certain auricular muscles which are present in dogs and cow and rabbit, etc. So there are three auricular muscle. One is anterior, another superior, and third one is posterior. These are meant for moving the pinna towards the direction of the sound, so that sound can be perfectly and easily perceived by the hearer, and which can better prediction of the sound or anything, any signal in the form of sound. So that are reduced. These are rudimentary in case of human being, but some of the human, they possess it still to till date. That is termed as reversal of the character, which is termed as atavism. We'll talk about that in the next slide. So so these are some of the vestigial characters or rudimentary organs. So these again prove that these complex organisms, they have arisen from the simpler organism through descent with modification. That means inheritary changes in the anatomical structures, which can be passed on to the next generation. And sometimes these structures, they become rudimentary according to the environment, but reversal of such character is possible. Also, another example of vestigial organs is pelvic girdles and hill limbs of Greenland whales. So here you can see this structure is showing the vestigial structure, pelvic bones in baleen whales, which are Greenland whales. These are the only whales which are known to possess the vestige of the structure, pelvic girdle and the hind limb. All other whales species, they have completely, uh, you know, uh, completely. Eliminated these pelvic girdles and hind limb bones. But in Greenland whales, these are present, which suggest that these must have evolved from some organisms which possess pelvic girdle and hind limbs. So this is again an example and evidence. Also, another evidence in case of vestigial organs is reduced hind limbs of pythons. Pythons, they have reduced hind limbs. So here you can see these structures, these bean-like structures. These are the reduced hind limbs of pythons internally, which also has pelvic girdle. So these are the spurs on the left and right side. You can see clearly these are the reduced hind limbs of pythons, which again prove that pythons and boas, these must have evolved from some lizard-like reptiles bearing two pairs of functional limbs, but they have changed in their mode of life, and that's why they have lost the limbs and girdles completely. But still, the these vestige has been found in the pythons. Also splint bone in case of horse, as horse has changed its gait throughout the course of evolution, so it has lost second and fourth functional toes, and now these has become the splint bones, and these are the vestige of the second and fourth functional toe of its ancestor, that is dawn horse or Eohippus. So again, it shows the organic evolution. The next example is of kiwi. That is a small flightless bird and of New Zealand, that is endemic to New Zealand, and it has degenerate wings with rudimentary bones in the wings and hair-like feathers. So that again proves that it must have evolved with a descent with modification from its flying ancestors. Then next are some of the cave organisms, which inhabit the dark caves, and as there is no light in that dark cave, the eyes are rudimentary. So some organism like this cave crayfish that has degenerated its eyes, and now it cannot see because it is never out in the open water where light is present, so it always inhabit the dark cave. So the eyes will be rudimentary in this case in cave crayfish, while its relatives, which live in open water, they possess normal functional eyes. So this is example of again vestigial organ, and it proves that organism descent with modification, that means there has been organic evolution. Now the last point is of atavism. what is atavism? Atavism is reversal or reappearance of ancestral characters which are not present in the parents. That means parent does not possess these characters, but some of the ancestral characters reappear in one generation on in one organism. That is termed as reversal of the ancestral characters. That means atavism. So some such characters are like tail, presence of tail on a human baby. Here you can see presence of additional mammae. Here you can see the small dot like structure, so that is an additional mammae. Then presence of hair, excessive hair on the body. So here you can see excessive hair on the body, and the presence of auricular muscles which are functional in case of some human. You must have observed that some humans can move their pinna. They can move their pinna to the direction of sound. So that is again an reversal of the ancestral character, that means atavism. So so these are some of the examples. Also huge canines, and like sometimes the splint bones of the horse, as we have talked in vestigial structure, they also become fully functional and are able to touch the ground. So that will be problematic situation for the horse because it will not be able to run efficiently. So that is a problematic situation, but that is a case of atavism. So all of these morphological and anatomical structures, they prove that there has been organic evolution. That means life has evolved from simpler organism towards the complex organism with descent with modification. So that was all about today's lecture. Thank you.